Hi friends. So finally what we were scared of has finally happened. Yes, the so-called Indian invincible women's team which was having such a great run coming into this World Cup, and they looked second best to only Australia, and they looked no other side were capable of beating them, have finally tested defeat in the hands of a resilient and determined South African team which performed brilliantly against all odds, against all hopes, in front of a partition crowd in Indian condition on an Indian pitch against the kind of Indian bowling attack which looked pretty impressive till the time Nadine de Klerk went berserk and she started hitting out fours and sixes to all parts of the ground to win the match in the last 4 to 5 overs. So it was almost like snatching defeat from the hands of victory for India and just the reverse for South Africa. But then it was not shocking or it was not unexpected. It was always on the cards because right from the day one, from the first match in this World Cup, India has been playing below par cricket and they have shown the clear chinks in their armor, and it was just that Sri Lanka and Pakistan didn't have the firepower or the batting ability to exploit them or to punish India. Unfortunately, South Africa bats deep. They have found new confidence in their own team after the men's team won their WTC championship and after the resurgence of the women's team in the recent World Cups, both T20 and ODI. Now they have started believing that they are going to be the real challenger for Australia, not India. And the best thing for them is that even after getting bundled out for 69 in the most humiliating loss in the first match of this World Cup against England, where any other team could have sunk in terms of its confidence, they have resurgence, they have got real belief to come out and chase down a total of more than 5 runs per over, 252 they chased down against India. And while they were languishing at one point at almost 76 for 5, from that moment it looked the match was all but lost for them, and then they had that confidence, they had that self-belief, and their captain Wolvert instilled that self-belief in them by playing a brilliant knock, and which was ultimately overshadowed by de Klerk's fabulous and fantastic, one of the greatest knocks in the World Cup history in terms of impact and in terms of winning the match. But then the problem for India is much bigger because it was not an aberration, it was just not one of the case. I'll try to give you an analogy of what India's problem has been with a Formula One car racing. In Formula One, because of thermal degradation and heat and friction and the punishing use of brakes and throttle and acceleration by the aggressive drivers, the tires wear out very fast, and sometimes that creates a real danger and you have no choice but to come for a pit stop and change the tires. Otherwise the lap duration will reduce because the driver will be more careful and he will have to put brakes earlier than necessary because of the lack of grip and elasticity on the tire because of the friction. Or if he continues to be aggressive, then he will risk the real fear and the threat to his car and to his life and to also fellow drivers, because the car may spin up without any elasticity and grip on the tires, and that can cause fatal or sometimes really dangerous accident, and the car would be ruled out of the competition. And the third thing is that sometimes this will also put higher rolling resistance on the engine, and that would make the engine would not be able to work at its optimum efficiency, and the car would not be able to reach the ultimate peak speed for which it is designed, and that means the car would reduce the speed and also it would add on to the time for the laps, and that would mean any which way the car would be losing out and the driver would lose out. So it is mandatory that they have to do a tire change in the middle of the or at whatever time they decide as per their strategy in terms of a pit stop. But the problem is sometimes the car tires start wearing out a little before the scheduled pit stop, and that time there is always communication between the driver and the background staff or the technical staff, and they try to see whether he can really put pressure on the tires and stretch it without any risk of either losing time or creating risk to the driver or to himself, and can manage for a lap or two, after which they are supposed to have the normal pit stop, which is fine. And the drivers are so brilliant, they are so competent, they manage for a couple of laps. But if you ask them to manage it for 20 laps, then that would ultimately end in a crash, or maybe he would lose out so much time that he would lose. That's where it is non-negotiable. You have to fix the problem. You have to bring in the car as per the scheduled pit stop, or if the scheduled pit stop is way past the time and you have no other option, then you have to do an unusual immediate pit stop to address this issue, because without this you can't improve, or you can't complete the race in the most optimal situation or optimum capacity and win this. Unfortunately, Indian team is in that situation where Indian team believes that they can run for the entire laps in this World Cup with the same problem without fixing it. So for a first couple of laps, that is against Sri Lanka in the first match and against Pakistan, they could still manage, because they had the team which managed to win those matches because of the lack of competition or the lack of pedigree or the talent or the batting depth in the opponent team. But you can't go on playing 6-7 matches and win the World Cup without fixing the tire. In this case, the problem of top order and middle order batting, which is so much blatantly visible. Let's go back to the beginning of this tournament. In the first match against Sri Lanka, they were comfortably placed at 120 for 2 after 25 overs, almost 5 runs per over, where you expect them to reach around 6 runs overall. That means they should be able to reach 300 because they had 8 wickets in hand. So from 120 for 2, they were reduced to 124 for 6 within the 2 overs. By 27th over, they were 124 for 6, and they were literally staring at defeat. It was ultimately the lower middle order led by Dipti Sharma and Amanjot who rescued them, and they managed to reach 269, and they had the bowling, and Sri Lanka didn't have the batting depth to chase down that total. Come the next match against arch rivals Pakistan, and they had the same problem. They were 48 for no loss in the 9th over. They were almost going at 5 runs per over. From there, they were reduced to 203 for 7 in the 46th over. And then it was the turn of Richa Ghosh to turn the tables on Pakistan and played a beautiful knock, a real cameo, to give them a total of 247, which was not a match-winning total, which was a below par total, but it was good enough against a team like Pakistan, which has been so abysmal with their batting. They have never been able to chase down 200. So India managed to escape from that match by winning that match against a team which didn't have the batting depth to chase down 247, which any other team or a decent team should have done. One hoped that Indian team would have learned the lessons and they would fix the tire problems in the Formula 1 parlance, that is the middle order and the top order. But coming the match against South Africa, they were 55 for no loss in the 10th over. That means they were almost going at 6 runs per over. From 55 for no loss, they were reduced to 102 for 6. Just yes, you remember, you know it correctly. 102 for 6 after 26 overs. That means your entire top order and middle order once again failed, and they failed miserably, and from that point onward there was no hope. It was once again Richa Ghosh who played an unbelievable knock and memorable knock, which unfortunately got overshadowed by De Klerk's match-winning knock. But then 94 runs of 76 deliveries, and in the company of Sneha Rana, she made it completely a different story altogether for Indian batting, and in the last 10 overs they added 98 runs. But in spite of adding almost 10 runs per over in the last 10 overs, they could only muster 251 because the damage was already done before the 40th over, because once they were reduced by 26th over to 102 for 6, you could do that much only, and Richa actually tried to turn the tables, but her best efforts were good enough only to give India a target at a total of 251. which was once again not a winning total. It was a decent or an honorable or a respectable total. And South Africa, unfortunately, were not like Sri Lanka or Pakistan. They almost bundled out, they almost fumbled, they almost stuttered, but then they had a blessed and they were blessed to have a real humongous striker in De Klerk who played a dream innings yesterday to win the match after getting inspired by their captain Wolvert's fantastic batting to anchor the innings when the damage was done. So yes, the symptoms were there, the troubles were there, the problems were there. It was going on from match after match and it was not fixed, and ultimately India paid the price. And the fact that India is also playing with the same template like what the men's team under Gautam Gambhir and Suman Gill is playing currently, that is to fill up the team with batters and they are ready to compromise the bowling incisiveness or potency by putting players who can bowl a little bit, but they don't have the capability of a real match winning bowler, but they can bat a little bit. So that's why we see a fantastic bowler like Renuka Singh doesn't get a chance and Amanjot is getting, because Amanjot is supposedly a good batter and she can contribute. In fact, she did that also in the first match to help India win that match. But then Renuka has the ability to win a match in the power play itself by taking wickets. And yesterday, just imagine, once South Africa were around 76 for 5. If that time Renuka was bowling in the power play along with Kranti Goats, he could have really created havoc and the match could have been finished off that moment itself in the first 20 overs. But no, we are playing with just 5 bowlers, out of which Kranti Goat as well as Amanjot are rookies. They don't have experience, they are not the real match winning bowlers yet. So India is only banking on Deepti Sharma as the death over bowler and a bowler who can give you wicket also. She is expected to bowl in the power play if required, also in the middle overs, also in the death overs. And unfortunately, no bowler can actually deliver in every match. Even Bumrah can't do that. So Deepti Sharma had an off day yesterday, and once that happened and De Klerk went berserk, India didn't have any real match winning bowler in the death to control the or to arrest the real slaughter, and also to stop the South African batters from running away with the match. And they paid price. The fact that Harmanpreet Kaur, the captain, who is now almost reduced to a specialist batter, had to bowl 4 overs clearly showed how India missed a 6th bowler. And forget a 6th bowler, you don't even have 5 top line bowlers from your squad playing. So that also makes it clear that if your batting is going to be below par, that it has been for the last 3 matches, your bowlers are going to struggle, and then any strong team or any Sena team which is right now in the top of the chart are going to beat you on a given day, unless you come out with a real dream performance by either a Deepti Sharma or maybe a Sneha Rana or somebody. So unless the pitch is a rank turner and you have been lucky to have those spinners to deliver, you will be in trouble. So India has to relook, because if in spite of filling up your squad and you're playing 11 with so many batters and you are struggling so badly, then the question comes, are you going to continue to also neglect your bowling and don't give yourself a chance to actually bowl out the opponents or a decent opponent side after you score a below par total? But then the counter argument is that when you are struggling so badly with your top order and middle order and are struggling to reach 250, can you afford to dilute your lower middle order batting further by taking specialist bowler? So it's a catch-22 situation for Indian team, just like what the Indian men's team have done so far. The Indian women's team have gone with the same strategy of trying to fill up the lineup with batters so that they don't collapse. But then they're paying the price in terms of their bowling also. And catching and fielding has always been India's problem. Yesterday was no different, but then it got balanced out because Richa Ghosh was lucky that South Africa dropped 2 catches and missed a clear run out of her, and for which she punished South Africa, and it got nullified when De Klerk was also dropped towards the later part of the innings. But then fielding has been a big problem for India, and it has been a perennial problem. It's a chronic problem. It doesn't seem to have got resolved, so they have to work on that. They have to take 5 at least match winning bowlers, or at least frontline bowlers, whoever they have. If not, they have to have at least 6 bowlers. That I don't know how they're going to do. And their top order and middle order batting, they have to fix it. There is no other choice. You can't find out players from outside the squad. You have to play them, and you have to have the confidence in them. You have to trust them, and hopefully the likes of Jemima, Harleen, and Harmanpreet, and even Smriti Mandana, who has been having a slightly below par World Cup. Hopefully, the law of averages would go off, and then they are going to perform against the big teams on the big occasion. That would be the only way India can really make or mount a real challenge for this World Cup. Otherwise, this World Cup can quickly dry up as one more forgettable experience for Indian team. And what makes it even more tougher is henceforth India has more bigger and more tougher battle side, because the next match is against Australia, the invincible Australians, the defending champions. And the performance yesterday and the lack of confidence of the batters would not be great going into a match against the world beaters Australia, against whom India has never won a bilateral series. Forget even the big World Cup matches. They have never won a bilateral series in the last 40 overs. Yes, they have played brilliantly in 2017 World Cup, but that has now been forgotten as an aberration. So if they have to forget, now they have to forget yesterday's match, and they have to come fresh and come with renewed confidence and self-belief that they can beat, because they have the team, they have the squad. They have recently, only 10-15 days back, scored almost 400 runs while chasing 400 plus from Australia, and that same team they are going to play. So they should believe that they have the batters to score 300, 350 even against Australia, even though they have not been performing. So once they have that confidence and once they have the self-belief, they can still turn the tables, and they just need one big performance from their batters to come to track and to really look like a champion team, or look like a team that can challenge Australia for the crown. Let's hope for the best. We'll find out the answers on 12th of October when they play Australia. Thank you.